Hi, I'm Malte. I am a professional miniature painter, and today we're continuing the quest to make oil paints less scary and more useful for miniature painters. This is Armando. He reached out because he had a question.
Let's say maybe my question was for myself was, is this actually a medium that I prefer over acrylic? Like, is this like the fits my way to paint better?
And over the course of 3 hours together, we painted some Goblin skin, starting with an acrylic sketch, and then moving on to the oils. What you're about to see is a condensed 45-minute version of that coaching session with the most important theory, demos, and questions highlighted. Of course, there's no way to cover everything here, which is why I've also written an ebook called The Miniature Painter's Guide to Mastering Oil Paints. You can grab that for free by signing up to my newsletter, and there's a link for that in the top comment of this video. By the end of this video, you'll not only see whether oils are a good fit for Armando's style, but you'll also pick up on some key insights into mixing colors from a limited palette, sketching with acrylics, and creating vibrant, believable skin tones with the oil paints. And a quick YouTube reality check. Posting a 45-minute teaching session like this is great for painters, I'm sure, but it's not exactly what the algorithm loves. So if you find this useful, leaving a comment, a like, or subscribe is really appreciated. Alright friends, let's talk about how to paint Goblin skin. Let's talk about painting green skin. The tricky thing about painting green skin is always that in order for the skin tones to look alive, you need some red in there. And of course, green and red are complementary colors, like sort of complementary colors at least. And so what you can easily end up with is like a very dead color when you mix these paints together, right? So I've just blacked out the model first and foremost, like just the skin. And now I just wanted to try to kind of re-sketch the skin with the green colors. So I have just like my basic palette here. And from here, I just wanted to take some blue and some yellow to mix a green. And now you said like olive green, so I think maybe we need to desaturate things just a little bit. I want to desaturate the green a little bit, so I add a little bit of magenta since that's like the complementary color. And so this will give us a little bit of a colder, more desaturated green to use for the skin. If we add some white, you can see it's almost sort of like turquoise territory. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when that happens, I want to add a little bit more yellow back in to give it a little bit more of a green feeling. So this way we have a green that's a little bit less saturated than the pure green we would have with just using the blue and the yellow. So I added a little bit more white, a little bit more yellow to make a slightly brighter version of that. And to make a darker version, I'll just add a little bit of this brown, since you said kind of olive, so I'm leaning into this burnt umber tone a little bit more. And we'll remix these colors with the oils, but this is just to sketch in the skin. Okay, so here we have three lovely colors. One is a little bit more brownish, a little bit darker. It looks a little bit darker on camera than it actually is. It's kind of a brighter burnt umber. And then we have something that's a little bit cooler, a little bit more turquoisey. And then for the brightest tone, I think maybe we should add just a little bit more yellow and see we get now into that more golden territory. Is this sort of the palette you had in mind, something like this?
Yeah, it's looking good.
Great. What's your experience with painting with oils before this session? Have you done some experiments on your own, and how have you found them to be? And like, what's your...
I've been using them since the end of last year, I would say, but mostly for like of course, like the oil washes to feel to use the capillary the effect.
Yeah.
And staining, like I like sometimes to just have the basic with the acrylic or with the airbrush. I give like the basic tones I want, and then I kind of apply this darker version of the same tones on top. And just let it sit for a while and then clean it up, so that I have all this different coloration on the mold. I've tried like a couple of times to just add some highlights or edge highlights, and that works great also. but I don't know. I never trust myself into going into a full blend model.
Yeah, like painting from start to finish with the oils is a different kind of technique. There's lots of like small helpful things you can do with them, but I think it's really cool that you want to try to jump into like painting the model fully with the oils.
I really like the flexibility. I have to say, like something that, I mean, I like my airbrush a lot, but when it comes to the point where I have to switch to the brush with the acrylics, then I get a little bit out of the vibe.
Yes.
But with oil, I don't know. It seems like I can leave it here and come back tomorrow, and I can pretty much continue where I was, and that's something I like.
Yeah, it's. I think that issue about the drying times is something. Well, I call it an issue, but that topic of drying times is both what people love and what other people hate about it, which is really strange. Because it's like, it's like, is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? Who knows? It's kind of a preference thing, and
yeah, it's a subjective thing.
Yeah,
yeah. For me, I don't have any. I mean, I don't do commission or anything. This is for my own hobby, entertainment. So I can leave a model there for a couple of days. I don't stress about it. I even got out of social media, so I'm not on Instagram or anything, so I don't feel pressure to post anything.
Yeah. That's
so
really good.
Yeah, I have really all the time of the world.
Yeah, so I've just taken that slightly turquoisey colder tone and put that on the bottom of the face, like all the way down here, but also in the shadows under. Like, because there's a lot of fun volumes down here that we can explore painting. Just put that on the lower side, and then I kept the cheekbones black still, the shading of the cheekbones, because I want to shade that with red. And then I took the brighter, warmer green and put that on top of the head and on top of the volumes. And now we will go to the nose and look at more of the green tones. But it's just a simple layer. Now, I'm not even mapping out volumes. I'm just trying to get the base coat down at this point.
Okay. So I have to say, like, that's maybe one of the issues I find myself having is I know where the lights go. Like, I used to work as a photographer, so light is everything. It's the main thing. But I never know how to paint the shadow part, like in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
And I'll leave them too dark.
Yeah. It's very, very common to shade the face too dark. It's one of the number one pieces of feedback I give to students is to try to think about the entire form rather than thinking about too much of all of the micro volumes. Because like all of these wrinkles, you'll see that each of these wrinkles, I'm just putting this quite bright base coat. This is all like a bright mid-tony base coat. You can see the red is not that much darker than the green either. So I oftentimes, really most of the time, I see people over exaggerate these wrinkles and shapes on the face. But here with this, it should be clear that there's not a huge difference in value in the reds and the greens. We can add some shading later on. Of course, now there's also something about opacity, right? Because a single layer of acrylic is not going to be totally opaque, so I do need to insist a little bit more and paint a second layer. But I just wanted to get the color zones down. So I will add a little bit more yellow into my red, and I like to put some orange into the ears. Just kind of like that. It gives a little bit more life to the character, and you'll oftentimes see that subsurface scattering, I think it's called, where you can see the light from behind the person in the ears. Is that correct? Subsurface scattering? Is that what that
I'm not sure on the technical term, but I know what you mean. Like when you can almost see the yellow of the skin with the veins.
Exactly. You're looking through the ears and seeing the light from behind. So I will just take.
So you keep your acrylics quite diluted, right? Or
but I don't really add a ton of water, but I'm using quite a big brush, and then I have some water in the brush, but I'm not trying to make like thin, nice layers at all. I'm just trying to.
Yeah, no, that for sure. Yeah, but I see that it kind of like goes very well without like.
Yes.
Being overwatered or too dry.
Yeah, exactly. My goal with acrylic dilution always is that I want the paint to leave the brush very nicely, but I also want it to be like a covering layer. So whatever dilution I go for, I always try to have something like this where you can see like it's, okay, maybe that color is a little bit bright, but I'll try with the red instead, it'll be easier to see. Now I've kind of used a lot of the paint, so that also makes it a little bit more diluted, but I always try to, it's thin enough that it leaves the brush nicely so I can paint nice strokes, but it's not so thin that it doesn't cover, especially at this stage of the painting, because I'm sketching, right? I want to see the shapes. If you're enjoying this video and want to dive even deeper into oil painting, or maybe you're just looking for some personal guidance in your miniature painting journey, I want to invite you to come join me on my Patreon, where I share tons of exclusive video lessons, live feedback sessions, where we have an awesome community of painters all supporting each other in our artistic journey. So if you're serious about finally improving your painting, please come join me and the community over on Patreon. It also has the added benefit of allowing me to make more videos just like the one you're watching right now. Alright, let's get back to the painting. Again, the purpose of the sketch is not to be a perfect like rendering. We don't have to go for the full contrast. We don't have to make something that looks super nice, but it should just have the right brightness underneath so that the oils don't, like, they get a little bit of help here from this layer.
Right, yeah. Being very transparent.
Yeah, exactly. So now I've done that with the green. Maybe I want to insist a little bit more on the highlight in the forehead. Don't really care so much about smoothness, so I'll just take some white, some yellow, and place like my highlight here up on top. So all of these wrinkles and such, they now come from this tiny step at the top of the value scale. Does that make sense? So we don't have these deep shadows in the wrinkles. It's just like this final brightest tone that will...
Okay. So you start building, I mean, you don't build it before, you just do it at the end, and
yes,
the effect comes from that.
Yeah. And then it will be not much more natural looking and much more integrated in the end. Okay, so I will not get lost in the details, but try to move on a little bit quicker. So we'll take some of the pink and do the same for the nose. And we have this lovely, big, characteristic nose on this sculpt. So again, I try to pick out some of these wrinkles now, but it's only with these brighter tones that I want to show the wrinkles. So this way it's a very simple sketch. With 2 to 3 layers, I have an idea of what I want the face to look like, and we have something that will give the oils a little bit more opacity and something for the oils to hold on to.
I really like in person or like direct talk with a teacher, because I can get your feedback in real time, and it makes me feel like more sure what I'm doing. Because watching videos, then you can mix colors and anything, but you never know if you're doing it really correct.
I would like to dive deeper into past painting but in general oil, because it makes me feel more relaxed about the painting. The ability to delete errors, and you see immediately what you're doing, like, I don't know, layering things. It's kind of a trust in the process way to paint for me with acrylics, but with oils, you kind of like add the colors where you need them to be.
Yeah.
And blend it, at least. That's how I understand it from what I saw online. So
no, absolutely, it is like, but it's also tricky because you have to break with some of that layering muscle memory and some of that layering mindset, and you're so used to
I don't know, I think it's just
thinking in these layers. So I think you need
the white.
If you could grab just a slightly bigger brush and it just like makes bigger pools of pink.
Yeah, maybe to see if I do have one. I can use one of this ones. Although you did multiple parts of paints, right? Like you didn't go.
Yeah, I like to do like a few small puddles next to each
Okay.
other, some darker, some brighter, just to build a little bit of a scale. So I'd say what you have there is an okay midtone, but I would like to add a little bit of the brown into it. And maybe a touch of the red or magenta.
Oof.
Just to desaturate a little bit.
Maybe a little bit too much.
Yeah, a little bit too much of the brown, but that's okay. You just add some more yellow and you should be good.
Yeah, like I think my bigger error in this camouflage that I use is that I really work a lot with airbrush, down to details sometimes. And that makes my brush skills and I think this is a little bit muddy right now. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, so maybe that's more of a shade. So if you add some white and some yellow to it, you will get more of a mid-tone.
Okay.
And if it's too desaturated, you can always just put in some more blue and yellow.
Yeah, it's kind of became.
So you can see it becomes it looks like it becomes quite a nice mid-tone.
It's kind of like
with the white
an
in there.
ochre almost.
Yeah.
Okay. So from here.
So try to leave some of that browner tone you had just before, if you have just a little bit out in the side, so you have something to shade with. And then we will say that this is the mid-tone, and then you will also create a highlight with more white, more yellow on the other side of that shadow tone, maybe. Or like the other side of the mid-tone. So you have shadow, mid-tone, and highlight next to each other on the palette.
Okay, so I leave this for the shadows, and on this side I make the more
exactly,
highlights.
Exactly. That's how I would.
Then I will just take some. Oh, for maybe in the camera it looks slightly more greenish. For me, it looks slightly more.
Yeah, it's always really tricky with the. Okay, yeah, I can see that it's kind of more reddish brown almost.
Yeah, it's
compared to the
like I said, this is really kind of like a ochre, a slightly greenish ochre. So maybe I don't know if I need some blue to balance it back to.
Yeah. Just add a little bit of blue then. The blue and the yellow.
Oh yeah. Okay, this is doing it. Yeah. Right.
Okay. Yeah. I'll have to rely a little bit on your eyes here as well, because the camera is really tricky with colors. And so I think what's so nice about the acrylic sketch is also that not only do you get to kind of try, like you kind of get to greet and meet the volumes before you really start painting it, but you also get to practice the color mixing.
Yeah.
So now we get a sense of what the tones we like, what they are. And when we then go into the oils, we kind of know how to mix that again because we have a reference for it. And so from there, I would just add more white and more of just small parts of the green mixes you have above. So small parts of that highlight green you have. That will create these nice beige tones that will build the bridge very nicely from the red tones and the green tones.
And here also, like you say, like big brush strokes, and that's just because.
Yeah, just try to make a base coat that has the colder tones towards the bottom, warmer tones towards the forehead, and redder tones on the nose.
So I can start directly with the lower color, right?
Yeah.
It's a bit of water.
Yeah, I would just let that dry on the forehead now and just come for the reds. Because always the first layer on top of primer, it doesn't stick so well. So
the reds,
it's better just to let
I
it
start
dry.
also from the darker one, and then we...
Yes. Exactly. So underneath the cheekbone, the whole nose, and the sides of the nose, around the eyes and such. Great. So I'll take some of the ultramarine blue, a little bit of the yellow. I try not to take too much of the yellow because the yellow is very strong, right? So this should be our base green color.
This was now just the blue and the yellow?
Just blue and Indian yellow, yeah. Okay. And I don't know if you can see it. Maybe if we add a little bit of white, it will be easier for you to see. But you can see that the green here is actually quite a different green than what we got with the acrylics, right? Because it's already way more like brownish.
It's because Indian yellow.
Can you see that this is like, yeah, it's because it's Indian yellow, so it becomes more of an olive green. Nice. Quite naturally. So in this case, that's good. That's what we want. So I'll just stay with that. So I will try to build up the scale a little bit with more yellow, more white to make some brighter highlights, make it more golden. So, like, in theory, right, with the oils, because everything stays wet, we could also just do all of these steps. Like, we wouldn't even have to mix stuff on the palette. In theory, we could just put colors in the model and mix them together there. So I like to think of that step as like some mastery that I haven't achieved yet, but that is possible. Like, we could, in theory, do all of this mixing just by knowing our paints very well and just adding a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and just mixing everything together on the model. That is possible. Now I just took some red and it just mixes with some of the stuff I already have on the knife. That's okay. Grab a little bit of our dark green. See, it becomes more brownish. And I just recreate what we just did. Now it's just different pigments, but the underlying idea is the exact same. The exact same we're trying to achieve. And that's pretty much all the colors I need to paint the skin. Maybe I want to think about some of those cooler colors, so I add a touch more of the blue. Now I'm running out of white. And so the thing that can be a little bit hard to predict is that when you add the paints to the model itself, the colors may mix in ways you didn't foresee. Because let's say in one part of the painting you've added like quite a thick layer of some mid-tone in here, and another part it's a very thin layer, and then when you go to blend it, the result is not the same, even though you've put the same colors in the model, but because you put slightly more paint in one area and slightly less paint in another, then you have something that's in the end a little bit different. And sometimes those are just some happy accidents that you
have to live with.
See if you like and try to fix it if you don't like it. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Okay, so we have two cooler desaturated colors up here, used with a little bit more blue, a little bit more white. And we have our main green scale down here, which is just Indian yellow and blue plus white and more Indian yellow as we go up. And we have the red scale, which is naphtha red with touches of some of these green mixes intermixed that goes into this salmon like Caucasian skin tone type tone. Okay, so you can try to mix that with your paints. To get started with the pre-glaze, I'll just I have a little bit of thinner on glass here. I like to keep a lid on it because it is not super healthy to breathe. And I'll take a large brush. Here I'm just using the cat's tongue brush from the Armor Painter. But anything large, you have some flat ones there they'll work just fine. So I'll just dip that in the thinner. Nothing crazy, just like so it's wet. And go in for my shadow color. In this case, I think I will take pure umber. We could also do blue, but I'll just take some burnt umber, because I think it will give it more of that earthy quality that we're looking for than the blue, which oftentimes will become very saturated in this case. And then I will just cover with that thin wash the face. Could do the whole model, but now we're just looking at painting the face today.
Mm-hmm.
And so it, just like an oil wash, it will run into the crevices and give us like a wet surface to mix our paints into when we come in with our colors a little bit.
Understood correctly from some of your videos is to kind of just prep the surface so that the oil will work on it. Like, I mean, kind of like wet the surface in a way. I think is that?
Yes. Yeah. Because if you paint oils on a dry surface, you can do that, but they really shine when you paint them wet into wet. That's where they're best. So this will just give us a uniform wet face, and then we can wipe off most of it, but there still is a little bit of that oil left over on the surface. So once that's done, I'll just take a makeup sponge, and you don't even need to dip the makeup sponge in the thinner or anything. You can just go straight in there and wipe it away, especially from the raised edges, raised areas. I try not, if I've painted the eyes beforehand, then I try not to get too much of the pre-glaze into the whites of the eyes, because that's kind of a pain. But something like it. Now I'm just using the same brush that has a bit of thinner on it, just to paint the very darkest shadows that I know that will be under this cheek down here, like down on the neck of the, and the bottom of the jawline. So this is simply about just like the shadows under the face. We'll now start to work with a little bit brighter tones. You know what? We're on the jaw, so let's grab some of the cold stuff up here. And now no thinner on the brush or anything, just going in and picking it out. And now I want to try to place my darker colors where there's darker colors in the sketch, and my brighter colors where there's brighter colors in the sketch. So I don't put it everywhere, but I try to put it where I see the darker color underneath. And then I just continue with that principle, picking up brighter colors where I see them from the sketch and putting them next to the darker colors. Okay, so I'm just kind of focusing on the jaw, now grabbing a new brush. So now I see those red shadows I painted in. I also want to get those in with the olive, so I just take the dark red color, just put a generous glob of red there. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Can do the same on the nose. Maybe I think now the red is a little bit too bright, so I just put in a little bit of burnt umber. That's our shadow color. We can use that to shade everything. Because when I'm looking at it on the model, it looks quite vibrant. So I just put it on the sides there, not on the top, because this is a darker color, right?
Mm-hmm.
But just on the sides of the nose. And underneath. So now I'm taking a brighter red. You can see just how much brighter that is on the brush there and on the surface right next to it. In the beginning, I want you to not be afraid of thick paint. Because like if you add too much paint to the surface, the worst thing that can happen is that you need to grab a little bit of your thinner and dip your brush in it and then blend it together. There are some, like actually that thick paint, letting it sit there can like help it to seep into the surface a little bit almost. So don't be afraid to put a little bit a thick layer on here, because once the blending brush comes in, then that kind of changes a little bit. And we can fix the thickness. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like compared to maybe acrylic, where the medium just disappears and the pigments pretty much like stuck on top of each other. Here, it's gonna be wet longer, so you can still move things around and remove also in a way.
Yeah, because like if I add too much paint, I can just get rid of it again. It's really not that big a deal. And so just to quickly wrap up the demo here, for the forehead, I grab some even brighter greens. Just try to paint those in where I see the brighter tones in the sketch. So like the highlight, I take the new brush and brightest yellow tone here. So try to highlight some of these wrinkles a little bit. I also put this on the tip of the nose. What the hell? Why not? Okay, so now I've painted, we have the sketch, and then it's just simply grabbing the blending brush here. I'm just using a big, soft Kolinsky, maybe not this particular one, because I think that's for acrylics. Let's say this one. Big, soft, flat, used to be a sharp Kolinsky brush, now it's a flat one. And then I'm just stippling the paints together. And pigment will accumulate on the blending brush, so I make sure to have a paper towel nearby. I wipe it off, especially when I'm in places like here where I put like a very bright tone. I know that once I travel across here and go towards the side of the face, these paints down here will be darker, so I just wipe it off not to put any of the yellow white on the side here. So an interesting area is here where I put the green on top of the red, right? Just stipple that, and in no time we have smooth blends.
Yeah, that's the best part.
Yes, that is the most satisfying.
On top of the head, for example, like where you put the light one,
Yeah.
it was then on the side you put the darker one, and you just blend that part together. You don't layer it on top of each other.
No.
Okay.
No, because already it's gonna, the midtones, you can also see how much it's changed now over the, just by blending it, right? That some colors are gonna dominate and others are gonna recede.
Okay.
So oftentimes I find that highlights and whites have the tendency to recede quite a bit. So I would rather like make these perfect blocks next to each other where, so in here we have the midtone and in here we have the highlight, and then just blend the
that's what I meant.
between,
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Right? Yeah. So that's what I want to try to go for. I want to try to imagine the finished painting, and then try to see, okay, what's the quickest way I can get there? So can I just put in the final highlights in the very beginning and just blend that into each other? And oftentimes you need to reapply, just like you see here. I need to reapply, like the nose is too dark, right, compared to the forehead, let's say, because the red is just darker and kind of dominates a little bit. So I need to re-add some white to the nose, re-add some white to the forehead, and some sharper highlights to make the face really stand out. But like most of the mid-tone shadow work is kind of in place now.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so you should give this a go, and I will look over your shoulder and let you work for a bit and answer any questions.
So now I will just then pass it with a...
Yeah, yeah, and just like you would in a regular oil wash. So I think this is also the part of acrylic painting that takes the longest, is this integration of the shadows into the highlight, not into the highlights, but shadows into the deeper midtones, where all of the kind of richness and local color exists, these darker values. And so that's really what's so fantastic about the oils, is that you get that so quickly. So you have to futz a little bit more with the highlights, but you get so much of the heavy lifting done in the midtones so easily.
Okay, I don't remember, like, I go first from the darkest one in the under part, or...
Yeah, so the darkest color you have, the very darkest green, that goes in onto the neck itself.
Okay.
And so on the jawline, you can paint a slightly brighter tone, and then you can mix that into the darker color in a little bit. So I would actually save even more of the top of the head for the brightest highlight.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so what you can do is just take a brush and put a little bit of thinner on it. Another brush, just a clean one. And then just make that space you've left for the highlight bigger. Yes. There you go. There you go. And then not touch it anymore, because now yeah. And then just let that sit and go to a different part. Let's work on the red on the nose.
And okay, then we do only highlights there. Yeah. Just let this one rest.
Yeah, because we just wait a little bit for the thinner to evaporate. Because if you put the highlight tone straight into the thinner now, then everything comes very soupy.
Sometimes when I come home from work or like during my lunch break, I just put like some videos, especially like yours, where you go on Padron, you go a little bit more in details, and I just like let that go on and watch it, and sometimes rewatch. I try not to fall into the trap to just keep watching videos and never get to the actual painting, because that's also, I think, like a little trap for sometimes.
Yeah, of course. It's way easier to watch a video than to sit down and paint, but at the same time, it can be inspiring, it can be relaxing. That's also okay. It also has its place, I think. I also watch videos still myself, so like I can't. I really like the redness of the nose that you have. I think it looks super cool, but I would encourage you to push. Just like put a white stripe on the ridge of the nose or something.
Okay.
To give it a little bit more like brightness in the center there.
This panel will also pick up the hue.
Yeah, just a small area like that. That's fine.
Just on the point here,
yes.
Right? Okay.
There are some places that are really important. So like top of the nostril here. I try to keep the highlight kind of contained. I don't want to have it all over the place. I want to try to make it just like a small shine on the volume. Also down here next to the nostril. It's a very important place. And that wrinkle, which is kind of an imaginary one. I don't see that a lot. And then we can place a little bit down here on the chin. around the lips there. And then I just kind of invented some, let's say we have a wrinkle running down here. Just kind of freehanding that on, because there's this structure that kind of goes like this in like this circular pattern when we're shouting, right?
For example, like now you say like it's very important, like the one under the nostril, like near the nostril there, like where do you get to learn this kind of knowledge? Like just by learning how to paint faces and people in general?
Yeah, it's from understanding the shapes on the face and light very well.
Okay.
And knowing what to kind of push to bring out the expression. So if we were to make this area here very smooth, it wouldn't complement his expression.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully sometimes these things are in the sculpt, but sometimes you have to add them yourself.
Right.
And here this is one of those things. So like this one in here, it doesn't really make a lot of sense because in a way the nose is above it, right? So it should be in shadow of the nose. But it's because like we associate this part with just like next to the nose. If you go look at if you go look at faces just next to the nostril, where the nostril connects to the top lip shape, you'll often see just a highlight that runs just around that very connection.
Okay.
And so that's kind of what I'm thinking of and trying to adapt that into this sculpt that has a little bit of different shapes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see.
Yeah, so it's not a very concrete answer, but I hope.
No. At least for me, makes sense. Like just trying to, I don't know if amplify is the correct word, but like to amplify some minor features that are maybe a little bit hidden on the sculpt sometimes, but like give it like a shine, even if it's not, if maybe it's more of an artistic choice, but it just helps like creating like the more, what we all call like the contrast, and give it more like shape to each form, so that the face doesn't look like maybe, or any part that we're playing, it's not too flat.
Okay, so now you see how rough some of these highlights are, but they're all kind of centered towards the middle of the face, towards the center there. So now I just have to try to blend it without losing that contrast completely. And there's a limit to how much contrast we can get with the oils. Like you'll definitely hit a spot where this is kind of it, and then you have to wait for the oils to dry and paint a second layer. And also sometimes it can look super nice when you're painting it when it's wet, and then it'll dry and then it will fade a little bit, and then you have to paint another layer to get that same effect back. So can you see how carefully I'm treating that highlight, and I try to push it up to the top of the shape here. Kind of the last step of painting the face. Actually, there are more details we could add, but these tiny highlights to bring out the small volumes is what I would do here for the first layer. I would leave this to dry and then come back and see if I wanted to do another pass to strengthen some of these highlights and boost some of the colors a little bit more. Yeah, that's the thing I want you to also take from this lesson, is to try to experiment with some of these colors and some of the way things melt together with the oils, because it is kind of, to me still, I still get surprised whenever I paint and see, oh, that's not the color I thought this would make. It always looks different on the model, always changes.
Sometimes I feel like in reality, like some stuff more flat, but I understand that artistically maybe it makes more sense to accentuate that kind of stuff. Is that always an artistic decision, or I don't know, how do you know how much to go?
Yeah, it's a good question, because it's like and oftentimes I really don't know how far to go, but I try to push it further than I think, and then if it's too far, I pull it back down again. So if you're painting with acrylics, this could mean highlighting strongly and then glazing. Yeah. Here, this means like using, instead of using just our brightest yellow mix, I used off-white ivory type color, which was basically just pure white with a bit of dirty paint on the brush still, so that it mixed together. even because the skin has a little bit of shininess to it, so it can have some very sharp highlights that go quite far, right? So this is always what I'm trying to aim for when I look to push the highlights. So these small highlights take up a very small area, and so this is why even quite dark colors can have very sharp highlights, because if you expand them too much, then you lose the feeling of the color that's underneath, and so that's when you know you've over highlighted. But if you can contain them to very small areas, then that highlight will work much better.
Okay.
So you can push contrast very far
Just
as
like
long as you
gradually
place
into
yes
one specific parts of it. Okay.
yeah as long as you really have control and put it in a very small area, then you can have almost like pure white on the faces.
Cool.
But again, contrasts, like here now we're looking at it wet, just like with acrylics. You can't really judge a color when it's wet. It always changes a bit. So you'll see over the next few days that the painting you're sitting with also will change a little bit, and the contrast will fade a little bit. That's why also I try to push contrast very hard as I can in the first layer, and if it needs even more when it fades a bit, then I do it in a second.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Do you feel like this was? Did you get what you wanted?
Yeah. No, I feel like I got what I was looking for. So for me was like to finally put hands to this medium that I like for what I tried, but in this way is actually like the full version of it. And because you were there to help me like adjust and use it, I felt much more confident to go on a model. I feel right now, like, okay, I understand what I did so far. So I feel like I want to do other parts and like finish, go on and like try the technique with.
Yeah, try to paint more of the model.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I feel like let's say maybe my question was for myself was, is this actually a medium that I prefer over acrylic? Like, is this like the fits my way to paint better? And I think after this, like the answer it tends to yes. I really like especially this part of the put the color blend again a little bit. I don't know, it feels quite nice.
Nice.
So yeah, especially for the quality that you bring to the lesson, absolutely.
Great. Okay, I'm very happy to hear that.
Yeah.
And I'll look forward. I will have some pictures for you of the placement of the model, but it might be too shiny to see much. But maybe if once it dries, I can send you better ones.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much, mate. I'll catch you later.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
And that's it for today's session with Armando. We covered a lot, from sketching with acrylics to mixing greens and reds for lifelike skin, and finally blending it all together using the oil paints. If you found any of this helpful, don't forget that you can grab my free ebook, The Miniature Painter's Guide to Mastering Oil Paints. The link for that is in the top comment. If you want to dive deeper with me, there's always the Patreon, where you get access to full lessons, guides, and community support. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and as always, happy painting.